Welcome to Why Pricing Matters Now More Than Ever. We're going to talk about conquering the new era of FBA through superior pricing. Now, as you know, there's some big changes coming to fulfillment by Amazon in the form of new long-term storage fees. And what I'm going to lay out here is a map to overcoming these fees in the most efficient way possible through superior pricing. So first of all, we've covered a lot of stuff in the last week. This is the fourth video that I've sent you in this pricing strategy series, and I was only supposed to be 3, and I just had to get this one out, so I really wanted to make sure I gave you a bunch more useful info. I just wanted to knock this one out because this one's really important, and I kind of forgot to squeeze it into the last 3, so here we go. First of all, let's talk about what we've covered so far. Again, you've received 3 other pricing strategy videos over the last week or 9 days or so. So here's what we covered just in a super quick nutshell. We talked about the Amazon pricing conspiracy and that pricing sort of code of silence, why nobody's talking about pricing. We talked about why sellers are afraid to talk about pricing. We talked about why the gurus refuse to talk about it. We talked about pricing and why it's as important as sourcing. We talked about the only 3 ways to get an edge over your competition on Amazon. We talked about tripling your revenue through superior pricing, why pricing strategy is 10 times easier than improving your sourcing, how to tell if pricing is the source of your problems, the 21 elements of pricing strategy. Actually, we only talked about 21. There's actually a lot more than that. Examples of small pricing tweaks that can make you thousands of dollars, and then urgency analysis and the 3-question test for pricing books for almost $500. So we covered a lot of ground. If you missed any of these videos, please go back to your inbox and watch these. Lots of useful stuff I've thrown at you this week, and this is the last in the series. Okay, so it's a lot of stuff we covered. Let's talk now about the main point of this video, which is why pricing matters now more than ever. So, as a lot of you know, in just a few months, a giant change is coming to fulfillment by Amazon. Amazon is implementing sweeping changes to its long-term storage fees. Every item in your inventory that has been there longer than 6 months now will get hit with a fee. This affects books and media sellers the most, and I think most of us are doing a lot of business in books and media. If you're watching this course and you're on my email list, this affects us more than anybody else for the simple reason that booksellers and media sellers, we tend to go wide rather than deep. In other words, we have lots of single units of a SKU versus other categories like toys, for example, or other categories, just about any other category where people tend to have multiple units per SKU. In other words, we tend to have just one copy of a bunch of different titles, whereas, with toys, they might have 20 or 30 or 50 of a particular toy, right? So this affects us more than most because we have a lot more of our inventory spread out that was not subject to long-term storage fees that is now subject to long-term storage fees. So we're feeling the abruptness of these new fees more than people who sell in other categories. And what this means is that every February and August, you're going to get hit with a giant bill from Amazon. Okay, that's just the reality of fulfillment by Amazon moving forward. So what do you do? How do you respond? Well, here's what most sellers are saying right now. And when you eavesdrop on some of these forums and kind of listen to the buzz in the hive, so to speak, the response is actually pretty wacky. You have a ton of sellers declaring that these new fees mean the end of slow-selling books. Literally, you've got people declaring, lots of them declaring, that you can no longer ship in books ranked worse than 1 million or whatever the case may be because this is the end of an era and those books can no longer be sold at a profit. It's totally insane, but that's what people are saying. We have a ton of sellers saying this is actually the end of book selling on Amazon. There's actually a giant thread on the Amazon Seller Central forums right now with dozens and dozens of replies, and it's titled something like the end of book selling on Amazon. People are saying this with a straight face. It's gotten really weird. You've got sellers declaring that you should remove all books from Amazon's warehouses that are subject to these new fees. And you actually have a ton of sellers that because of these new fees are actually getting out of the business. That's how heated things have gotten. Now, if you paid attention to my blog at all, you know at this point I think all these people are wrong. I ran the numbers. It just doesn't work out the way they say they do. It's just not accurate. People are making emotional declarations, not numbers-based declarations. The doomsday forecasts are simply wrong, okay? The doomsday scenarios only apply to sellers who don't know how to price their items. If you have no idea what you're doing in terms of pricing, these fees might in fact put you under. If you do know what you're doing, these fees won't matter much at all, okay? I ran the numbers again. It amounts to about 17 cents extra per book per year. That's the extent of the dent that these new fees will put in each individual book. It doesn't matter that much, and it even matters less when you look at it in percentage-based terms. This literally amounts to, in terms of the money that I get per book, only a 1.3% impact on my profits. It just doesn't matter that much, okay? So these new fees are not a reason to get out of the business or change your sourcing practices. But there's one giant fact that remains that we cannot ignore, that will never go away, that I cannot sugarcoat, which is the fact that you will now get hit with a giant bill from Amazon twice a year, okay? That's the one thing, there's just no sugarcoating it. That's how it's going to be from this point forward, okay? So the question is, how do you respond to that? Well, there's 4 ways to deal with new long-term storage fees, okay? Number 1 is to ignore them. And that's actually not a bad idea. You could just go ahead and say, hey, it is what it is, and accept reality on reality's terms and just go on about your business. And I would not actually dissuade you from doing that at all. That 1.3% impact is worth ignoring. I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not going to try to put fear in you and say otherwise. Another way to do it is to get out of the business altogether. So you go to the other extreme. I think that's totally insane. The numbers just don't support this move. A lot of people are doing it anyway. Apparently, the 17 cents extra per book is just too scary for them to accept, and they're jumping ship. But my position is, if 17 cents is a deal breaker, you've got bigger problems than Amazon storage fees are not your problems. Your problems are that your inventory sucks and your pricing really sucks. But all that aside, fair enough. Okay, so another way to deal with long-term storage fees is people are saying, stop shipping in books ranked worse than 1 million. This is probably the most common response you're going to hear. The numbers just simply don't support this move either. If you sell one $25 book, it offsets more than 20 other poorly ranked books that don't sell in 1 year. That means if you only sell 5% of your long tail, meaning the slow moving books, you're still breaking even, assuming they all sell at $25. That's just a number I pulled out of the air. But whichever way the numbers go, the fact is you only have to sell a small percentage of them to still offset the long-term storage fees. So the numbers just don't support this at all. You would really have to screw up to lose money with poorly selling books, even with the new fees. Okay, so I don't support this move either. Another thing you can do is say, okay, I'm not going to mess with my pricing. I'm not going to jump ship from Amazon or stop shipping in books. What I'm going to do is offset the new storage fees by ramping up my sourcing. And you really wouldn't have to ramp it up that much to offset these fees. Like I said, they're not that big, but okay, so let's say you want to do that. That's a good idea, but if you're like me, you run out of sources long before you run out of time or money. So ramping up your sourcing is actually kind of hard, and it's probably the hardest way to deal with these long-term storage fees, okay? I'm going to propose that the best possible way to conquer these new fees is through adjusting your pricing strategy and using pricing strategy and smart pricing strategy to achieve exponential results in your revenue across all of your inventory forevermore. So pricing matters now more than ever for all the reasons I just described. Up until now, we have been extremely comfortable and complacent. But now, for the first time ever, starting in February, there are actual real consequences to letting old inventory languish. Now, for the longest time, we could ship books in, we could be lazy about our pricing, we could not even concern ourselves with whether we were pricing intelligently. We could just kind of sloppily just go, all right, I'm an FBA seller, there's no FBA competition, I'm going to price, send this 3 million ranked book in and price it $25, and I don't care how long I have to sit on it because I'm only paying 1 or 2 cents a month for storage fees. Okay, those days are gone, and now we have to accept there's actually consequences for poor pricing strategy. And so shipping in less inventory is definitely not the answer, even though that seems to be what most Amazon sellers are going to choose to do. Once an item is at an FBA warehouse, there's only one way to convert that item into cash more quickly, and that is through pricing. So as of now, you've got however many, hundreds or thousands of units at Amazon right now in their warehouses, and in February they are going to get hit with fees. And the best way to address that is going to be through adjusting your pricing strategy and going through and actually repricing your items. Now, this is not as simple, and I want to be clear about this. It's not as simple as dropping your prices. It's actually much more complex than that, because it's just as effective, if not more effective, to actually raise prices on certain inventory to offset the fees on the slower selling items, right? So this is not just a matter of like panicking and lowering all your prices. That's not what I'm talking about here. But hopefully, I've made the case here so far that intelligent pricing will offset new storage fees more quickly and easily than any other single change that you can make with your FBA business, period. How to adjust your pricing to mitigate the impact of fees. So let's get into it. Number one, you should stop pricing books ranked 2 million the same as books ranked 200,000. Meaning, stop pricing books that are slow sellers the same way you price books that are good sellers. Now, it is staggering. I mean, like I'm speechless when I talk to Amazon sellers and realize how few people adjust their pricing based on sales rank. Like, I've literally talked to Amazon mega sellers who make millions a year with books on Amazon, for whom it has never occurred to them to have a different pricing strategy for their poor selling books versus their good selling books. It's like completely insane to me, but this is the reality for most Amazon sellers, is they don't have a sales rank based pricing strategy. Totally crazy. Number two, reprice slow selling books more often. Most people just reprice when they reprice. But the fact is, and we can set aside all the issues around repricing software and why I do not recommend it, but if you're doing any of your pricing manually, repricing slow selling items more often should be absolutely central going forward. Number three, set a minimum price threshold for slow selling books. So let's say you scan a book and you're outsourcing and it's ranked 4 million. You might want to decide, okay, I'm going to set a minimum price value threshold of $15 for that book, or $12 or $10, whatever the case may be. Personally, I'm kind of at around $10 when you get upwards of 1.5 million. When you get upwards of 4 million, I raise it to 15. Those are the changes that I've made. I think that's actually fairly conservative. You can actually set the bar much lower than that and not be at risk of losing money. That's just kind of where I'm at currently. But whatever the case is, you should have a formula, right? And this one is basically what I just covered a moment ago, and just setting different pricing formulas for different sales rank stratas. Okay, that one's pretty straightforward. And number five, this is basically the catch-all. It's making small pricing tweaks to your entire inventory that will create new revenue to offset the new fees. Okay, there are dozens and dozens of different pricing strategies you can apply that will increase your revenue just a little bit, that all add up to being something really, really huge. We've covered a bunch of those in the last video and the one before that, and I'm going to cover a lot more in the Pricing Mastery course, but that you get the idea. So here's what a dynamic pricing strategy will accomplish. Remember, most Amazon sellers do not have a dynamic pricing strategy. They've got a very static and linear pricing strategy that ultimately costs them tons and tons of money, and it's especially more damaging considering these new fees. So number one, it's going to turn inventory into cash before it gets hit with the fees. And again, this is not as simple as just lowering prices. Like I said, it's about using sales rank based pricing formulas to mitigate risk as well. So it's about raising and lowering prices. Accomplishing this through effective repricing and setting intelligent prices at the outset. Okay, so it's about repricing, and it's a whole other set of strategies, and then setting prices at the beginning. Okay. Number two, it will increase revenue to offset fees. If your pricing formula can be explained in one paragraph, it is way too simple. Okay, so just kind of think about, like, if you had to explain to somebody and teach them how you price your fulfillment by Amazon inventory, if you don't become immediately overwhelmed at the thought of having to explain your formula to somebody, then your formula is too simplistic and you're leaving a ton of money on the table. The bottom line, you guys, moving forward in this new era with FBA, is that optimizing prices is the single easiest thing you can do to increase revenue fast. It's vastly easier than sourcing. It's vastly easier than increasing your feedback score or anything else you can do to increase your revenue. Pricing is it. Nobody's talking about it. And so everything we've covered in this video and the last 3 videos and a million more subjects are all covered in the Now Live Pricing Mastery video course. You've only got a couple more days to jump on this, and then this package is going to be gone. This is the world's first complete guide to FBA pricing strategy and basically how to get the most money for your stuff. First of its kind, 15 plus modules. I just added a bunch more. Totally complete, thorough guide to every aspect of increasing your revenue through superior pricing. I'm really proud of this. It's been a year in the making, and I know you're going to get tons of value out of it.